of 9:59, so I've got one more minute before we start the call, but we can still hear people talking in the background. So one more reminder to mute your phone line so that when it comes time for the Q&A session after the briefing, we'll be able to hear each other's questions. Yesterday at 4 o'clock, I couldn't hear the questions. I'll just be honest. So you guys need to do your job on your end for us to have a Q&A session. Otherwise, it's just going to be a Roger briefing and it's going to be over with. Not trying to be complaining or griping here, but this is a situation, for obviously in tropical events, we want to have time for everyone to have the opportunities to ask questions. So please mute your phone lines.
Mayor's office.
You can talk back.
Yeah, if I unmute it.
I was going to say it's muted though.
Oh, yeah. And if I want to, I can go right here, raise my, and I'll click on that and it'll let me ask a question.
Oh, cool.
See, you just kind of like we're losing in school. This we get to actually lose. I mean, 19. Yeah. Look, see, you can enter a question right here, and then hit send.
Okay. So I'm hearing someone mentioning the answer. You can post a question on the post here. That's great, but we need to mute the phone lines in the meantime. This is Roger Erickson with the National Weather Service. We're going to go ahead with our weather update for the 10 o'clock advisory. It's still a potential tropical cyclone. The Hurricane Center says they have a plane flying out in it right now, and they fully expect this system to become Tropical Storm Cindy at any time. So I wouldn't be surprised if by the midday update at 1 p.m. that it'll become Cindy, and if not then at the 4 o'clock. Irregardless of that, the reality is the system is already blowing at tropical storm force wind speeds. So really the storyline isn't even going to be the fact about the tropical storm perspective, although we do have a warning out, tropical storm warning now, for both Jefferson and Orange County in Texas and the following parishes in Louisiana. Basically, it's the I-10 corridor down to the coast. So Acadia, Calcasieu, Cameron, Iberia, Jeff Davis, Lafayette, St. Martin, St. Mary, and Vermilion parishes. That's where the tropical storm warning is in effect now, pretty much I-10 corridor south. Montreux is also working on a coastal flood advisory. That's going to be coming out here in a little while. It's going to be for our coastal areas. So that's going to be for Jefferson County. And in Louisiana, it'll be Cameron, Iberia, St. Mary, and Vermilion parishes. The big storyline of this event, if there's nothing else to take away from the conference call, is we're really looking at a heavy rain and flooding potential scenario for our forecast area. Combining with the above normal tides and the gusty winds, it's going to make it very hard for water to be draining off wherever the rainfall develops over the next couple of days. The 2 days that we're really focusing on will be Wednesday and Thursday, although today we are expecting to see rain bands on lower Acadiana, especially St. Mary and lower St. Martin parishes during the afternoon and evening hours today. So the next slide that we're looking at is infrared satellite imagery. I show you where the low position is currently located, south of southeast Louisiana. The orange and reds on here indicate where the strongest thunderstorms are located, where all the heavy rain's located. So you can see north and east of the center of circulation is where all the really heavy rain is occurring. And that's going to be a reoccurring theme as this thing approaches landfall over the next couple of days. The next graphic that we're looking at, a couple different things to point out here. The first thing is you notice where the observation is at 10 o'clock. It's at 25.9 north, 90.5 west. But you notice the shade of orange on there, that's where the area of the tropical storm force winds are right now. So see where the X is. We're talking about the tropical storm force winds being on the north, east, and south side of the storm. There are next to no tropical storm force winds on the west side of this system. So just be aware of that, depending on where this thing makes landfall. The updated forecast track did go further west. We're near the Texas-Louisiana state line for a landfall on Thursday morning. And because of that, they pushed the tropical storm warning all the way down to High Island. So the table here that we're looking at for the threats, the confidence level's been increasing due to the system getting closer to land. The wind threats on the lower end, it's a tropical storm, not a hurricane. Surge threat is going to be mainly for people along the coastal areas. The big storyline is going to be the rainfall and flooding. Right now we have it in the orange or moderate category. We'll be watching it closely to see if we have to bump that up to the high category this afternoon as we look at the latest model runs for rainfall totals forecasted across the area. The tornado threat, yesterday we had as none. Today we've bumped it up to low because the Storm Prediction Center is now outlining areas of our forecast area for the potential for tornadoes, including some areas for today. And we'll get to that later on in the slideshow here. The next slide we're looking at is the probability of tropical storm force winds. And the key point here is to see where these different shades are. You can kind of get an idea of where we're looking at the threat for the highest winds. The darker shade of yellow is between 40 and 50%, and that's basically Jefferson and Orange County, Calcasieu, Cameron, Jeff Davis, Vermilion parishes at this stage of the game. But because of the forecast error, obviously it could go further east, and so that's why we're including Lafayette, St. Martin, Iberia parishes as well for that. Obviously, with tropical storm force winds of 40 to 45 miles an hour, the gust factor on top of that, we always talk about being about a 50% more, so 55 to 60 miles an hour. With these kind of wind speeds, we're looking at some damage to buildings and also scattered power outages. The timing of this is on the next slide. I've got two different graphs to show you the timing of the arrival of the tropical storm force winds. The one on the left is the earliest reasonable timing, and the one on the right is the most likely. So you can see, comparison purposes, let's just use Cameron for an example. Cameron, the earliest time of arrival of tropical storm force winds is 2 a.m. on Wednesday, whereas on the right side you can see for Cameron it's more like Wednesday afternoon. So that's the difference of the timing of earliest versus most likely. So this is something for people to be planning for, especially for areas that have schools, summer school in session, whether or not you got to make the decision to close school tomorrow. Use this as your decision. Help us to make your decisions on whether or not you need to have school open tomorrow, based on the factor that they could potentially see tropical storm force winds in some areas as early as tomorrow. We are advertising, honestly, for much of the area that we're expecting to see it starting tomorrow morning on Wednesday morning, 8 a.m. You can see extends across, the St. Mary, Iberia, St. Martin Parish line. That's the timing for that area. 8 p.m. it's already going to be well north of the I-10 corridor on Wednesday. So really, Wednesday is the focus area for when we're expecting these winds to kick in. And you think about it also, not only for the timing of the winds, when these rain bands are moving in the area, a lot of time in the rain bands themselves, the winds can be gusty also. So even if the timing here shows a certain number, the reality is, based on what we're watching on the radar real time tomorrow, when we have rain bands in the area, the winds are going to be very strong inside those rain bands. All right, so the next slide we're looking at is the purposes of the timing of the tides. Like I said, Mantra's working on the coastal flood advisory for our coastal areas. We're in a low tide right now. We're approaching high tide for Sabine Pass and Calcasieu Pass close to noon time today. And so that'll be the timing for when the next time we might have some potential issues. You look at the tables here, the blue line shows the forecasted timing of when the next high tide is. And so what I want to point out to you is that the next high tide after this afternoon will be occurring after midnight tonight. And the high tide after midnight tonight is actually forecasted to be higher than what we're going to be seeing at noontime today. So we're looking at a nighttime scenario with a higher than normal tides. We're expecting 1 to 3 above normal. Tonight will be the timing of when we're expecting problem areas that we always see from the flooding perspective, coastal flooding perspective. So over in southeast Texas, we're talking about Sabine Pass and the area between Sabine Pass and Port Arthur. Over in Louisiana, Cameron Parish, we're talking about Highway 82 on both the east and west side of Holly Beach, as well as portions of downtown Cameron. Further to the east, it's a very similar timeline that we're looking at, a high tide coming in, give or take, around noontime. Secondary one, which is much stronger, coming in after midnight, anywhere from like a 1, 2 a.m. to maybe as late as 3 or 4 a.m. over there at Amaretta Pass. Now, this area, I would expect the tides are going to be probably the ones shading closer to that 3 feet above normal, because with Vermilion Bay being a concave coastline, the tides will probably be pushing in there and having nowhere to go. So I do expect to see more significant flooding actually over in Vermilion, Iberia, St. Mary Parish areas. The hot spots that we typically talk about over there are Pecan Island, Intercoastal City, Delcombe, Sycamore Point, Burns Point. Those are usually the spots that we see water coming on the roads and being an impact for people in the local community over there. So, like I said, the timing of it, the first one's going to be probably that we really have to focus on will be the one coming in late tonight after midnight. The next graph we're looking at is really the centerpiece of what we're focusing on here for the rainfall threat. And the shades on here, the green indicates 2 to 4 inches of rain, the yellow indicates 4 to 6. So you can see our forecast area basically encompasses all that. So we're looking at right now 3 to 6 inches of rain across our forecast area. That's what we're advertising right now. But the stronger rain bands, localized amounts of 10 inches will be possible when they occurred both tomorrow and Thursday. So the spots to be really focusing on for us is going to be the I-10 corridor south to the coast, because due to the above normal tides, when the water's trying to drain out of Bridge City or the city of Orange and stuff like that, and the tides are running high, it's going to be difficult for that water to drain out. Same thing in Louisiana for the Lake Charles area, Westlake. We're going to have issues with the backing up of the waters in those areas. Further to the east for all the usual spots along the Mermentau, along the Vermilion River over in Lafayette, and of course all the points south of Vermilion Parish and whatnot. Those are all the spots that we really need to be focusing on for the poor drainage spots. Due to the tides running above normal, the water is not going to be a runoff as good or as effective as it normally would. And so because of that, we do have some outlines for where the risk for the excessive rain is over the next 3 days. For today, we're really focusing on southeast Louisiana, but it does start shading into our lower Acadiana. So St. Mary Parish is actually shaded for the potential risk for excessive rainfall today. And the timing on that's probably going to be this afternoon into tonight. Now, for Wednesday, you see the bottom left picture, you see it's the slight risk is basically for our entire area, because we're expecting rain bands in the entire area. So everyone's under the gun for Wednesday. Thursday, they right now they've got 2 different outlines. They got southeast Texas and maybe western peripheries of Louisiana being the focus area, but I wouldn't be surprised if that Thursday outline changes and it will include our entire forecast area as well. So stay tuned for updates on that Thursday graphic as we go through the scenario over the next couple of days. Finally, the last part we're looking at is the tornado potential. And yesterday we didn't see a potential, but it's been increasing today. The top left picture shows the tornado risk for today. Basically, St. Mary Parish, Lower St. Martin is the area of risk. It's a slight risk. It's a 50% probability or smaller for the threat for tornadoes in that area extending into southeast Louisiana. However, on Wednesday, you notice the risk gets much larger across our area. It's basically the I-10 corridor south from Lake Charles to Lafayette, Breaux Bridge area southward. So those are the parishes in Louisiana that we're looking at having potential risk for tornadoes during the day and evening on Wednesday. Thursday, it will be a very small risk for basically our entire forecast area as the storm is making landfall and moving inland across the area. So the summary sheet, we're talking about the fact that this potential tropical cyclone 3 is likely going to become Tropical Storm Cindy at any given time. The hurricane plane is flying out into it, and we'll be receiving data from it continuously here for the next several hours. Tropical storm warning has been expanded to include Jefferson and Orange counties now in Texas, as well as Acadia, Calcasieu, Cameron, Iberia, Jeff Davis, Lafayette, St. Martin, St. Mary, and Vermilion parishes in Louisiana. And we're also working on the coastal flood advisory for Jefferson County in Texas, and then our coastal parishes in Louisiana, which includes Cameron, Iberia, St. Mary, and Vermilion parishes. The main problem that we're looking at, once again, is going to be the heavy rain. We're looking at 3 to 6 inches of rain, localized spots up to 10 inches of rain over the next couple of days for Wednesday and Thursday. And poor drainage problems because the tides are running above normal. And with these above normal tides, we're focusing on key areas along these coastal spots where we think the water is going to be backing up and not doing so well in the usual spots in Port Arthur, south of Port Arthur to Sabine Pass, in downtown Cameron, over in Pecan Island, Intercoastal City, Sycamore Point. Those spots that we mentioned earlier, that's the spots to be focusing on. On top of all that, this is a tropical storm that we're expecting to come in, so we are expecting gusty winds. So we have to treat it like a severe thunderstorm, really, and expect to see some minor property damage due to the winds, trees falling, and stuff like that, scattered power outages during both Wednesday and Thursday. So that's it from here at the National Air Resource Lake Charles. The next briefing will be at 4 o'clock this afternoon, but I wanted to open it up to you guys for any questions.
Hey, Roger, this is an Evangeline.
Yes.
I know we're always on the borderline here. Do you have a time frame to expect the rain for Evangeline Parish and possibly the amount of rain expected for Evangeline Parish?
Evangeline Parish right now is on the 2 to 4 inch area, and the timing of it'll probably start at some point during the day on Wednesday, and then continuing. They'll be off and on depending on when the rain bands are there, also on Thursday as well. But the key point for even for Evangeline Parish, we don't know where the rain bands will end up setting up. Sometimes these rain bands are very narrow. They might be 10, 20 miles wide. And whether or not it sets up specifically in your parish or a neighboring parish, that's the question mark that we'll have to monitor real time as we go through the event. So we're saying 2 to 4 inches, but the potential for 10 inches still exists for your area as well.
Okay, thank you, Roger.
All right. Any other questions?
Hey, Roger. Jack. It's Jack from the SPR. So what I'm basically looking at, what you're saying is effects pretty much from Jefferson County east, correct? With the heaviest rain?
Yes.
All right, good enough for me. Thanks.
All right.
Roger, this is John with Orange County. We're wondering if there's going to be any type of storm surge effect in the area of Sabine Lake, Bridge City, or West Orange area.
That's something that me and Mike were talking about this morning. We're kind of holding off on it right now, but for this afternoon we'll be reevaluating it. We don't have it in there right now. Depending on this system, if it goes a little bit further to the west, then I would suspect that Bridge City could potentially see a little bit of water. Not the whole city like a Ike scenario, but the low-lying areas in the backside of town and whatnot. Yeah, that could potentially be a situation. So right now we are saying it's not a problem, but we're reevaluating it, and we'll give you an update on the 4 o'clock call with the new forecast track.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
All right.
Hey, Roger.
Yes.
And it's Jared over at the JFL in Baton Rouge. Are we looking at the same type of impact here as we're going to see in Lafayette?
Yes, the Slidell office is the ones that covers the Baton Rouge area, and what they've been saying is over there actually more rainfall. They're actually advertising higher rain totals. In fact, you look at the graphic there. Over there, we're looking at potentially 6 to 10 inches in some places. I know that I was talking with Ken Graham, the MIC over there, and he's actually saying that there's potential for over 10 inches of rain, and he's the same timing of what we're talking about in terms of we don't know for sure where the rain bands are going to set up. So potentially Baton Rouge could get some of those really large numbers over there. But yeah, southeast Louisiana is definitely at risk for a heavy rain event.
And any indication as to what it might look like come Saturday?
Yeah, well, by Saturday, the system will be gone, so we expect improving conditions at that stage of the game. In fact, even Friday, we expect the conditions to be improving.
Okay.
Roger, what kind of movement are we expecting with the system? I mean, we're not anticipating any kind of stalls or anything like that.
They haven't moving, not the fastest. They haven't moving, give or take, give around 10 miles an hour. And so that's not really super fast. That's one of the reasons why we're kind of focused on the heavy rain threat, because it's not a fast mover. 10 miles an hour. If it's going faster than 10, we consider it moving fast, but it's moving 10 or less, so that's going to be a slow mover, typically produces more rainfall.
Roger, St. Mary Parish.
What kind of storm surge are we looking at for Sycamore and Burnsville?
For your area, we're looking at the 2 to 3 foot range, and the timing of that will probably be on Wednesday and also early Thursday.
Okay.
So yeah, for both Burns Point and Sycamore Point, those areas I'm expecting the roads are going to go underwater in those localized areas, at least during high tides.
Okay.
At 10 down the road, they're gonna call and say, when is it gonna hit my area? When is it gonna hit my area?
Any other questions?
Roger, this is Preston Iberia.
Yes, Press.
I've got the same question as St. Mary, except for Delcom. What kind of high tide or surge would you predict for the Delcom area?
Yeah, Delcom is very similar. We're looking at same values of the water, up to 2 to 3 feet above normal. So yeah, I think that both sides of the Delcom Canal, the Vermilion side as well as the Iberia side, is going to have problems in those localized area there.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Any other questions? Okay, we'll email the slides out to you here in the next few minutes. And like I said, we'll do a local conference call again at 4 p.m. this afternoon.
Okay, we have Andy here in case anyone has any. Turn that thing off. In case anyone has any questions, and Andy probably has a few general comments, but it looks like tomorrow and Thursday are going to be the impact days here. Just a reminder, tropical is sustained winds of 40 miles an hour combined with heavy rainfall. That's going to make driving around very tenuous at best. So I'm going to let Andy make a few comments, and if you have some questions.
Thanks, Dick. Yes, looks like Wednesday is going to be Wednesday and possibly early Thursday will probably be the day for the biggest impacts. Obviously, Roger explained about the heavy rainfall, 3 to 6 inches, and of course, that is going to be, we think, obviously the primary threat. I know the coastal areas in Cameron and so forth are probably going to see some modest coastal flooding, especially along the usual roads that are susceptible to that. But we're really more focused in on the heavy rain, and we think the more organized rain bands, and keep in mind, these rain bands can have very intense rainfall rates of up to 5 to 6 inches per hour. Now, it won't rain 5 to 6 inches, but if it rains for 20 minutes, well, that's about 2 inches right there. So just keep in mind, these intense heavy rain bands will produce a lot more or higher than normal rates than you would have even from an average thunderstorm here in southwest Louisiana. So that's going to be the main issue. And then on top of that, I know we're not really advertising. I know we're advertising that most of the heavier rain bands will be on Wednesday and probably into Thursday as well. With the weekend coming up, one thing to keep in mind is we probably won't have as high rain chances, but there will be a very tropical air mass over the area. Generally what happens when tropical weather systems come inland, especially for this one, is all the organized heavy rain goes away, but a very usually large tropical air mass is over the area. So thunderstorms can initiate very quickly, and that will likely occur Friday and possibly into the weekend as well. So even though we think the rainfall amounts will go down, we could see some more localized heavy rainfall and even some potential flooding as well Friday into Saturday and Sunday. So.
Andy, you got any comment on Brett long range?
Right now, we think that Brett is probably going to kind of meander a little bit more, may move into the Northwest Caribbean. We got to keep an eye on it, but right now I think that all indications are it's not going to be, it doesn't look like it's going to make it into the Gulf. Most of the tracks are taking it a little more further west, obviously, and that's what we're thinking right now.
Anyone have any questions for Andy? Yeah, operationally, we're going to be doing an emergency declaration for the parish today, just as a matter of routine. Gives us some more flexibility. Does anyone have any questions on planning, or do they have things, if you need something we need to help you with individually, we'll be around here for all day. So anyone have any concerns, any questions about any kind of other warnings or any other kind of actions that might need to be taken? Any elected officials? We've got a couple of mayors here, Mayor Ponche, Mayor Roach, Kenny, anybody else? Mayor Duncan, yeah. Okay. Well, as Andy said, what we need to watch out for is heavy rainfall and wind, so take the appropriate cautions. We'll have another weather briefing today at 4 o'clock.